we're moving on, and we're staying sort of in the area, but to another tragic past. But thankfully, we've
There's nothing
not your
about the past,
not
yeah.
your tragic past, no. But in fact, revolution's always about the past, actually, isn't it? VESNA has been living in London since 1986, but she was born in Belgrade. She writes in English, her third language. She's professor of creative writing at the University of East Anglia and at Exeter now. You've added another one. And she's the author of 4 stunning books. They're all very different. Inventing Ruritania, on the shaping of cultural perceptions of the Balkans, and a prize-winning poetry collection, The Angel of Salonika, and 2 international bestsellers, and I can say that because you know how when people say that, 2 international bestsellers, they are international bestsellers. Both were serialised on BBC Radio 4, and it's her memoir, Chernobyl Strawberries, and in 2015, the very widely translated, wonderful book, Gorski. And if you haven't read Gorski, this one, not just because it's a red cover, read it. It's a fabulous novel. Look, yes. You wrote it for me, I know. Vesna, over to you.
Thank you so much.
Which Boris? That Boris. Oh, sorry, there is another.
Boris started with the beginning of the revolution, and I'm going to start.
I thought you meant another Boris haunting us.
No, there are too many Borises in our lives. I can get rid of one very easily. Started at the beginning of the revolution, and I'm going to read something about the end of the revolution from Gorski. It starts in Russia, but it ends here in Mayfair and in Chelsea. And it's the first chapter, and it's slightly chopped to fit my timing, but I hope the continuity won't be lost. We are in a bookshop in Chelsea. It was a piece of business that comes along once in a lifetime, if you are lucky. First, there was a year of glamorous parties, an unexpected, undeserved year, unlike anything I had ever experienced. Then it all suddenly stopped, and I had to return to what I was before, to a different language and a different place. Gorski changed my life. I remember his first visit to the shop. You couldn't fail to notice him, even in a city like London, in which millions are bent on attracting attention. People walk around with exhibitionist swagger, as though starring in their own YouTube clip. He was quietly remarkable, foreign, expensive, somehow still, even when he moved, his volume turned down permanently. His melancholy muzzle was equine and aristocratic, and his tailored clothes so ripely English that at first I thought he could only be Prussian. A lot of redundant Deutsche princes dabble in antiques and art in these reaches of Knightsbridge and Chelsea. They often punch above their meager monetary weight when it comes to tailoring, these von thises and von thats. He possessed billions, more money than anyone can surely spend, let alone need in a lifetime. He dressed the part too, but you had to look closely to notice it. His money did not shout. It whispered in the rustle of whitest Egyptian cotton, finest cashmere and softest calfskin, and in the ticking of the most precise platinum watch mechanism ever made. He had so many, more or less identical Savile Row suits that they must have been as disposable as tissue paper. I don't imagine he bothered with dry cleaning. The Russians looked tougher, beefier, and coarser, even when they were undeniably handsome. I don't mean Russians in general, they're lovely. Of course, but the Russians in this handful of London's richest postcodes, the self-selected set of men belonging to the generation which in the West would have been called baby boomers. In Russia, their lives had spun a full circle. They grew up in shared apartments, made billions in crude oil, gas, or sophisticated scams, spent it on houses, horses, whores, and occasionally hired killers, and finally returned to playing cards with each other, just as they did in the bad old communist days, only now surrounded by squads of bodyguards. I should have guessed that he was Jewish too, but in the end, his Jewishness mattered to him and Natalia Summerscale more than it mattered to me. They were Russian. I'm not. I'm from a small and insignificant nation in an insignificant corner of Europe, and I'm glad it is so. For this story, my nationality matters only in the negative, only insofar as I was neither Russian nor English, and only because, after it had all happened, it was the one thing that persisted in the captions below the grainy photographs of me and him, then me alone, as though it was my defining feature, despite it being the last thing I reached for in describing myself. You could say I'm tumbleweed, a species that disengages from its roots once matured. The condition of exile was not altogether unpleasant. I had chosen it for myself. Gorski was building a house down the road, and we were to ensure that on the day it was ready to occupy, it was furnished with the best library in London, the best private library in Europe, not just any general library, but a library tailor-made for a Russian gentleman scholar with an interest in art, literature, and travel, and the flair for European languages. A library that would look as though Gorski had acquired the books himself and read them over many years, or, if he had not already done so, was fully intending to read them. Moreover, a library that would look as though he had inherited much of its stock from bookish ancestors. Gorski wanted first editions of everything, including the Old Testament, and he wanted his copies in mint condition. Money was, I hardly need to add, not an issue. I will give you an allowance, he said, taking a long, narrow checkbook bound in maroon crocodile skin out of his coat pocket. He paused for a couple of seconds before writing out the sum of £250,000 payable to Christopher Finch, Ltd., as a notice sellotaped to the till directed him to do. The slim barrel of his fountain pen was elaborately encrusted with pin-sized gems. The ink was dark sepia. His handwriting was both beautiful and illegible. The sum was clear enough. Spend the money, and when you spend it, ask for more. Take 30% off for your time. But I want the receipts for everything, down to the cheapest paperback. Does that seem reasonable? His tone suggested that he was reasonable, indeed generous, but not a fool. It suggested, moreover, that he had had some experience in dealing with people who took him for a fool, and that they had found out it wasn't a good idea. Do you have time for that?
Now, you've probably guessed already, Gorski is a modern version of The Great Gatsby. It is the most extraordinary story. I love this book. And we actually we had a wonderful session at the Hay Festival as well about it too, which was...
Rainy.
It was rainy, but I didn't notice that. So
okay.
You're going to...
I'm going to, in the true anarchist spirit, read a poem now, because this book of poetry of mine, which was Times Book of the Year in 2011, is completely out of print and no one can buy it. And I won't sell my copy for any money in the world, not even to Gorski. So I'm going to read a poem which depicts a little vignette of my daily life in West London. It is called West London Afternoon. And we are in a Michelin-starred restaurant. A knife in your right hand, a fork in the left, a row of glasses, water, white wine, red, a crystal stockade ending with an unexpected flute, a starched desert of white linen as far as the eye can see. Is this all? Is this all right? You tried the wine. The world is in it. Eucalyptus, chocolate, damson, leather, licorice, plum, tobacco, truffle, musk. But the body, is the body all right? The new exhibition at the Royal Academy, did you see that man, Kapoor, made a mess, such a mess in the name of art? Was it wax, that blood-like substance? You wouldn't believe the queues, yet all those unvisited spaces elsewhere full of pictures. And that new Booker? How can anyone stomach so much historic present? I promise myself to read only the Russians from now on. They never fail you. Hadn't someone noticed that already? The master of half-finished sentence. You are in control of words and movement, so au courant, so au fait, with the art of periphrasis, with scripted hesitations, our bourgeois chamber pantomime. Cast adrift in your English small talk. Sometimes I hate you so intensely. I always need those 5 minutes more to decide what I want. Then I take myself aback with some ghastly Balkan story about a woman who suffered gangrene, no anesthetic, just wartime moonshine, perhaps some wine, not half as good as this one. I go for it. I ruin our peaceful West London afternoon. Then I put the knife down calmly and watch you pay, while I tear the matchsticks out of their embossed booklet one by one and leave them there, lying, unlit, broken. Thank you.
I don't think you've quite resolved your dual identities, have you?
Thank you.
For another time. Thank you so much, VESNA Goldsworthy. Thank you very, very much.